Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the She Network, where today we are going to be learning from an industry expert on how to get our voices heard, how to deliver with confidence and engage those in front of us, to be remembered when we leave the room and leave a lasting impression. I'm so delighted to be joined today by Pascal Bergmans, founder and CEO of Presentales, a really successful speaking consultancy that works with global brands to develop fantastic public speakers. I'm also joined by Simone Davis and Trina Everall, co-founders of the She Network. Hello, everyone.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Pascal, we're really excited to have this chat today. You have such a unique and inspiring career journey. Are you happy to share your story with our listeners?
Yeah, like I always say to people, I can do this story in a minute or in an hour, but I'll give you a short version. So my career has been a bit all over the place, and if people know me from LinkedIn, they will know a little bit about my journey. So my background lies in musical theatre. I did that for almost 20 years, which sounds weird because I'm only 29 now. But I started at the age of 4. My mother played Tinkerbell in the musical Peter Pan, and I sort of just got catapulted into that world of musical theatre. And I absolutely loved taking that audience on a journey. It wasn't necessarily about being in the spotlight, it was more about creating these 2 hours where you were all agreeing that we were in this whole new world, which is what I absolutely loved. So eventually chose to do my bachelor's in musical theatre, moved to the UK to do my master's in musical theatre, and then by accident ended up in Wicked on the West End due to one of the directors coming into the school to do one of these master classes. And from there, it sort of took a bit of a leap onto the big stage. So I've been very lucky to have been doing lots and lots of different shows in the Netherlands, in the UK. And then 6.5 years ago now, I had a stroke. So I became fully paralyzed from the left side down. And that ended my career pretty abruptly. So I had to obviously pay rent and pay the bills. So after I started to recover a little bit, I worked as a receptionist, I worked in finance, I worked in tech, I worked in media, and I realized that working in the corporate space was not for me. So yeah, actually my husband said, why don't you start teaching people how to present better? Because if I looked at my very short career in corporate, which was about 3 or 4 years, I got promoted rather quickly, even though I didn't really understand what I was selling. I was often in a sales position or a sales manager position, but I was good at presenting. So, people asked me for some help with that. And slowly I was like, yeah, maybe that is something that I should be doing. And I launched Breeze and Tales 2.5 years ago now. It feels like 2 days ago, but 2.5 years ago. Started off with some normal basic public speaking coaching, mainly for corporates, so for teams and team meetings and stuff like that. And that then developed into me helping CEOs with their keynotes. And now I help other people to get paid to speak because that is something that happened. And, again, by accident, I started to get invited to do all these amazing speaking gigs. I got to share my story, I got to share my ideas and my perspectives, and I got paid for that. So now I get to show other people how to do that. So it's been quite a trajectory.
Well,
Wow.
you've definitely helped me, Pascal. So that from the session that I had with you and was able to take that and just when I presented, being able to give something of myself, it was
Mm.
in India launching a scholarship. That was the point. That was the thing that everyone came and talked to me about afterwards. And I would never have done that if I hadn't spoken to you.
I love that. That's amazing. And I think that is the big power of our voice. Yes, it's scary, can be nerve-wracking, and we have all this information we have to share. But really, the first thing we share is ourselves because we need to lock that audience in, and it's all about connection. So I'm very glad that you managed to do that, Simone. And
Yeah.
it is what sticks with people, right? Because we feel like we know this person, even though we've only heard this much of their story. So well done, you.
Thank you. And as you said, it really helped build that connection because
Mm,
people recognise bits of my story, where I was from, and the sort of my experiences. And that's, as I said, it really built a connection. It was
I
really
love
fun.
that. That's
Was that
awesome.
was that all in your intro then, Simone, when you were presenting? Are you talking about having a really strong intro when you're telling your
Yeah,
story, or was it part
yeah,
of the...
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. what is it they say? How many seconds is it that someone takes to make their first impression of you?
Oh, about five. It's
Is it that
really,
little?
really like it's a very small number. It's often even before you've said anything. It's how you walk onto the stage or, in front of these people. In the theatre, we've got a saying, it starts with your first breath. Because a lot of people, when you enter the stage, people go, and then they just start speaking. They take these really deep breath into their chest, which doesn't really help. You want to take a moment to just land, sort of look at the people, take a nice deep belly breath in so that you can get that nice oxygen instead of the panic oxygen, is what I like to call it. And that's when people go, oh, something's about to happen. And then you start speaking. And before you start speaking, they've already decided, do I want to listen to this person or not? So it matters how you show up. If I walk onto a stage sort of going, hi guys, oh, touching my hair, not sure, all of this, then you're like, oh, she seems nervous. I don't know if I want to listen to this person. But if I present myself like, okay, I'm about to blow your socks off, then we've got something really exciting there.
I love the idea of going on stage and being like, I'm going to blow your socks off.
I mean, if you don't have what I call main character energy, then you don't deserve to ask for people's time, because that is what you're doing, right? You're on a stage and you're asking for people to listen to you for 20, 30, 60 minutes. So you better know that you've got a story to share that is going to blow their socks off, because people's time is their most precious thing. So make it count. So you need to have that main character energy.
For those of us that might not have main character energy or are just terrified at the thought of public speaking, what would the first step be in starting to build that confidence and starting to discover your own story?
So I think it is all about owning your value, right? Knowing what it is that you bring to the table. We often feel that we need to be everything to everyone. That's not what it's about. It is knowing exactly, this is what I'm here to say, or this is what I've got to share, and sharing that, right? I'm very useless in many, many ways, but I know a very specific niche of information and I know how to share that. So I think it starts with looking inside. What makes you feel very excited and passionate? Because that's often something that you're going to be very good at. And what is something that you can explain, or that that other people don't know in the way that you do and can't explain in the way that you do? Because then you can own that. And once you can own that, you can walk onto a stage going, I might not know much about finance, I might not know much about marketing, but I know this specific thing and I'm here to share that with you. So I think that's where it starts. Look at where the passion comes from. How can you explain that in a way other people can't, and own that?
So really, it's your perspective rather than your knowledge.
Oh gosh, knowledge is useless. It really is. Yeah, I made a post about it quite a while back where I said, your knowledge and your expertise is nice, but if you present it as a 2 out of 10, people are going to perceive you as a 2 out of 10. If I present it as a 10 out of 10, with very good, what I call vocal identity, with good body language, in a nice, easy to understand way, with a good narrative, people are going to feel I'm an expert. I don't have to share every single thing that I know for them to still think, oh, wow, this person really knows what she's talking about. So it's about how you present it and what perspective you're taking to that presentation.
I remember when I started Prompt, it was like my first pitch and I did information overload. I even printed schedules out on A3 sheets of paper with just so much information on. And I remember looking at the room, I'm pretty sure the Vice Chancellor had fallen asleep. I looked around the room and I'd like literally lost the room in like 5 or 10 minutes. It was such a humbling experience. I left thinking, goodness, I just took absolutely everything with me and just wanted to tell them everything and give them all the information. But actually, they probably just wanted assurance that, I could do the job, that I was personable, that I was trustworthy.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's this overload of information. It's like, well, if I can give you the information that I'm about to share on an A4 template, then it's probably not that interesting to listen to. So we want to hear a story. And when we look at communication theory, it's all about stories. We've done this since the dawn of time. So why do we feel like when we are in a corporate environment or when we are doing a presentation, that we suddenly, that doesn't count anymore? No, forget the stories. talk about all of the knowledge first. We often feel like we need to prove ourselves, but really that proof sits in you as a person. You just have to be you.
There's so many scenarios, aren't there, where this is relevant. So from sort of very obvious presenting something, as you said, pitching, but also, if you're going for an interview or just in a sort of formal or even an informal meeting, voice, just all of those lessons just go across all of that. And I think we sometimes just think about, I need to speak because I've got to do a presentation, but it's so much more than that.
Oh, 100%. It's giving people an experience. That's how I see it, right? If you put the word presentation on it, it feels quite daunting because suddenly when we say presentation, we are presenting facts, we are presenting that we are good enough. But if I'm trying to share an experience with a room, that's a much more interesting thing to think about. And it's also way less daunting because I need to make sure that they feel safe. I need to make sure that they have a good time. That is easier to do than trying to prove that I am good enough. Right. So, yeah, I always say create an experience rather than a presentation, because in communication theory, the choice to inform people is the most boring choice you can make. Informing is a very boring thing to do. But if we choose to bring them in and connect with them and have a conversation, even though I'm the one speaking, it's a silent dialogue. It's not a monologue. Then we create an experience and that makes people feel something. So that will stick with them rather than all the information that you shared.
The fact that you're talking about it as an experience says that you're thinking about how the people in the room feel.
Yes.
And I don't know about any of you, but I know that in the past I have presented and I'm so caught up with what it is that I'm going to say that I haven't even thought about what I want to leave people with or how I want to make them feel. And I remember going through training and, I'm by no means am I perfect at this. I'm still, a work in progress. But thinking about what I want to leave people with and how I want them to feel really helps me get out of my mindset of this is what I have to say and this is what I'm gonna just get out for that half an hour that I'm speaking and then get off the stage and feel really relieved. It's more than that based on what you're saying as well about the experience.
Yeah, and it takes away from you, right? We start focusing on ourselves, but really everybody in that room is focused on themselves as well. So I always say to people, serve at the pleasure of your audience, because that's what you're there to do. That's what communication is, making sure that the other person has a good time. That's where it all starts. So if we go, well, what will they think of me? What do I have to say? It's really not that important. It's all about them. It's not about you when you're up there, which feels strange because you're the one with the spotlight and the mic, but really, it's about them. It's not about you.
I love flipping that view to being about them. I think it's quite easy to hide behind information when you're presenting or talking to a group. It's quite easy just to regurgitate kind of what's on the slide or in your head. How do you get people to share parts of their own lives and themselves? Because that too can be quite difficult, can't it? To open up and to actually step out of the detail and create that relationship with people.
For sure. Well, I always say there's a difference between private and personal. Private stories and private feelings aren't interesting to an audience, but personal is. So I normally say to people, and Simone will remember this from the coaching that we did, start with what we call a before we begin story. So instead of, hi, my name is Pascala, I'm the founder of Presentails, yada, yada, yada. Today we're going to talk about X, Y, and Z. I say, before we begin, I want to share a quick story with you. And I share a short anecdote. Maybe it's me, me being in Peter Pan when my mother played Tinkerbell. Whatever the presentation is about, I find a small anecdote from my life that I can share with the audience. And that will introduce them to the topic, but it will also introduce them to me all at the same time. Okay, so it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be your full life story. It just needs to be a small anecdote introducing the audience to whatever it is that we're going to discuss today, and then go from there. And then you'll see it becomes easier once you've done that first anecdote to, throughout your presentation, add another anecdote here, share another story here, because you get comfortable with sharing parts of your story. But don't start right with sharing your whole life story. Just little tidbits here and there is more than enough for people to feel connected to you as a person.
Some of us may be listening to your story thinking, oh my goodness, that is the most interesting story in the world, and mine is really uninteresting. How do you kind of get people to be engaged and enthusiastic about their own story and to find passion within their own journey? I know a lot
Sure.
of colleagues have spoken about wanting to do a TED talk but not knowing where to start and what can I talk about? I'm not that like, how do you kind of move people's mindsets along?
I always say to people, your story is so much more interesting than you think, because in your head, that's just what happened, right? But for other people, that's completely new information. So I don't think you should have a stroke in order to have an interesting story. I don't recommend it either. It's not a great thing to do. But you don't have to have climbed Mount Everest. That's, you hear a lot of those nowadays. You don't have to summit all kinds of mountains or overcome cancer or anything like that. If that is part of your story, then fantastic. Definitely share that. But it's the day-to-day stuff that I find works best, right? When I share with people that my mother used to play Tinkerbell and Peter Pan, to me, that was just my mom, right? But to other people, when I started sharing that sort of off the back in a conversation at the water cooler one day, they were like, what? That's so cool. And they started talking about it. Even when I give examples during workshops that I deliver or in presentations, they're often examples for things that happened that week. Last week I was presenting at a Dutch financial firm, and we had a few really funny jokes and a few really funny moments that I now share this week in a few of the talks that I'm doing. So it doesn't have to be this massive thing. Don't feel like you need to have accomplished the world in order to have an interesting story. Things that seem normal to you are more exciting to other people. So just share what happened to you and share that in a way that is engaging to people. So don't just go very high level. Go into how that made you feel, what happened in that moment, so we can picture what that feels like. It's all about building pictures for people so that they can put themselves in that situation.
Pascal, just watching you speak, and it reminded me now, and I'm doing it now, was about kind of using your hands and your body language as well. And I think sometimes when you're presenting, you're so kind of nervous and worried about what you're doing with your hands, you kind of stand really stiffly. And actually, I did some videoing for something that needed to be shown on quite a big screen. And that was actually really helpful, because otherwise I think I would have just stood there and said my piece. But actually that advice as well is really helpful.
Oh, for sure. You can make anything exciting if you use a bit of body language and a bit of vocal identity, and the two go together, right? A voice that's turned on means a body that's turned on. A body that's turned on is a voice that's switched on as well. So you need to use them together. But I can tell you about going to the supermarket and make that the most exciting story you've ever heard, just because I'm using my hands and I'm using my voice, and you're like, yes, let's go, this is so exciting. So it really doesn't matter as long as you use that presentation technique that comes with it. So honestly, like I said, it doesn't have to be the most exhilarating story, the most tantalizing story in the world. It can just be a simple thing that happened that relates to your topic. Just say it with full conviction. And if you're like, well, that's not me, then practice it.
On the practice front, say if you want to be a public speaker, a listener's hearing us talk and thinking, well, I'd love to be a public speaker, but it feels years away, confidence, skill. What steps could they take, or what kind of like small settings could they start in, like a roadmap to get to the stage?
So I always say to people, you can practice at the dinner table. When your partner comes home, maybe you've got kids or you're eating with your family, Sunday big dinner, and they say, oh, what happened this week? Try and share one of those stories and animate them a little bit more, so you dramatize them a little bit. You don't have to lie, but dramatization is okay by, really bringing those feelings and really bringing that story to life. That's where you can start practicing. And if people start laughing when you want them to laugh, if they cry when you want them to cry, if they ask the right questions reflections off the back of it, you can go, oh, this is something that is interesting. Then try it out at work, in a team meeting when everybody's still getting ready. It's like, oh, guess what happened to me this weekend? And you share that story. There are opportunities everywhere. You don't have to wait until there is a big stage where you get invited to do a keynote and then you try it for the first time. That's really scary to try it out and to practice it only when you're on a big stage. You can practice this at any moment in time. I'm practicing it right now, right? This is all just getting those muscles to work to make sure that you share your stories and you share your experiences, your perspective in a way that is engaging. So don't feel like you can only practice it on a big stage. You can practice it anytime, anywhere.
Got 2 young children, captive audiences for this.
Oh, children are the best to practice on because they're so easy to hype up as well. So, I did this on one of my nieces and she said, we had to go to the supermarket, but they were like, no, we want to go to like Disneyland or whatever for the weekend. I was like, well, we're going to have to do some chores. So I said to them, well, okay, you've got a choice. We can either go to Disneyland or we could go to the supermarket. And they went, supermarket! They went completely nuts. And I was like, that is what it is. That's what communication does to people. So you can practice on children. It's fantastic.
I think what I'm absolutely loving about this chat so far is that we're all on Teams, or Zoom in this case. A lot of my professional week is spent on Teams in many different meetings. And I think what you're showing, Pascal, is that you can bring a lot of energy through how we communicate virtually, and communication isn't just face to face, it's how we engage people behind a screen as well.
Yeah, and especially after COVID, I think that has increased a lot, right? We do so much more online. My whole business is online. Like I do in-person coaching, and I love days away where I get to go deliver workshops in person. It's fantastic. But most of my time is spent inside, in my own office with the laundry hanging right there. So I think what a lot of people don't realize, when we are presenting on a stage, we feel like we need to turn it up, we need to turn it all up and we need to do something. When we just have a camera pointed at us, we have very limited real estate that we're working with, right? It's really only the top half of your body, if that. So if I would speak like I'm speaking to you right now on the stage, it would look really weird. Like you'd be like, why is she putting her arms so high? Right? Because in person, I can keep them lower and I can sort of gesture everything down here. But because you can't see that, and otherwise you just see a hand flapping about here and there, I need to raise my body language. So I'm sitting straight, my feet are firmly planted on the ground and not sort of just, relaxing or leaning back. I can do this if we're having a coffee chat on a Friday afternoon, just sort of how you're doing. But I'm presenting right now, right? So I need to make sure that everything is active body, active voice. So I'm bringing up my body language. I'm looking into the camera, not at the screen, because this feels disconnected. This feels connected, even though I can't see you. But again, it's not about me. It's about the people that are going to be watching this. So I look in the camera. And if you struggle with that, put a little picture next to it, put a little sticker on it that reminds you, look in the camera, look in the camera. When you're listening to somebody else talk, I don't mind you looking at the screen, but then back to the camera. And it feels weird in the beginning. Also, having your hands so close to your face when you're gesturing might feel weird in the beginning as well. But that, again, it's just practice. But you can bring and elevate that energy by speaking as if I'm on a stage in front of 50 people. So if my husband's home and I am doing a webinar or a podcast or a presentation online, he has to go upstairs because you can hear it all the way downstairs. So, but it's because you need to have that energy. So don't feel that because we have a camera, I might have my microphone, I can just sort of keep it down here. No, you need to work twice as hard really than in any other situation to bring across that kind of energy.
I have a question on that.
Sorry,
I was going to say, I have a question on that. What do you do about the fact that you can see your face on Zoom calls or whatever platform you're on? I mean, that's something we never had to deal with before. You get on stage and you're looking out, hopefully, into a sea of faces that are smiling at you or giving you some kind of response back. But ever since, the start of the pandemic, we all started seeing these little heads in the corner of our screen, you know, showing us back, reflecting back our images and our hands and all of the things that, you know, we might look at really quickly in a mirror in the morning if we get enough time before we go to a meeting. So how do you get over your own face?
So honestly, and this is tough love, you just get over it. Like, I just don't look at myself, number one. Like I might sometimes go, oh, my hair's a bit flat today. That's okay. It is what it is, because this is who I am. I can't change that. And I don't want to change that either. So, you know, I think it's about building the confidence that you're happy with who you are. I know that sometimes I pull weird faces, I make weird big gestures. That's who I am. And it's part, you know what, it's part of my appeal. It's part of what people like about me, is because I don't try to be something I'm not. I don't try to be better or prettier. This is what it is. I can't make it any better. So don't look at yourself, because we get very self-involved, right? It's going, oh, I wish I could sort of, you know, this would be nice. Sure. But I'm presenting to you right now. It's not about me. It's about you guys. It's about the people that are going to be watching this webinar. So I focus on the camera. I can't see anything if I look, you know, as I'm looking in the camera right now, I can't see anything else. And then when you're talking, I'm looking at you and I don't look at anything else. So it's having the discipline to not sort of, you know, to try to get that ego going, have that little voice going, oh yeah, my hair does look nice today. Or, oh, could have done a little bit more with my hair today. That is not necessary, and it is not helpful to what you're trying to do right now. So honestly, just get over it. There is no better way.
Another question on that is, do you watch yourself back to give yourself feedback? Because
I do, yes. So all my talks are recorded. And then I have to go through the very painful exercise of rewatching every single talk, even if it's a talk I've delivered 25 times. And I review that in a few different ways. Number one, I turn the sound off and I just look at myself. And I do that for about 5 minutes. And I go, why am I doing that? You know, my arms are going everywhere. But does it make sense? Is it engaging to watch? If the answer is yes, I'm not going to change a thing. But if I'm like, oh, you're doing this thing constantly with one hand and it doesn't stop, why are you doing this? Then that's something I need to work on next time. Then so that's a visual review, right? Then I do an auditory review. So I turn my phone around and I put my earphones in and I just listen to my voice. And when you just listen to your voice, that's when you become very aware of your vocal identity. So do I sound maybe a bit more monotone than I thought? Maybe I end every single sentence up, which is an upward inflection, which is completely unnecessary, which takes a lot of credibility away. Maybe I speak a bit too fast or too slow, or I constantly, you know, make every single word count. You have people who do that as well. So I listen to that. Then I have ChatGPT or whatever tool you use transcribe every single thing that I've said. I print it out on my printer. I get my marker and I go and take out every single non-word. And a non-word can be ums and ahs, but it's also words like. At some point I had a stop word that was okay at the end of every sentence, which didn't make any sense. So, and I mark all of those so that next time I deliver this talk, I know what to focus on. And then I review it all together. And that's when it all comes together. So that takes about half an hour to an hour, depending on how long the talk is. But that gives me a really good insight into my body language, my vocal identity, how I'm speaking, and then how it all works together. And whatever doesn't work, it goes. So next time when I rehearse, I focus on those specific assets, because you can't focus on the whole thing constantly, but I can try to be 1% better next time I deliver this talk. So that's where I go. But it is painful. It's definitely painful, but you need to look at it without judgment, but curiosity. It's just curiosity. What can I do better? And I do think that the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. Like I've been doing interviews, podcasts, videos since I can remember. My parents had a camera in our face when we were little. So I'm quite used to seeing myself, but there's still moments where I go, oh, why does my mouth do that? You know, stuff like that. But it's accepting, it's accepting that is who you are. And that's what makes you special. So why would you want to change that?
That's an amazing discipline to do that.
Yes,
I
it
will
does.
try and do that. I've never done that, but that is, yeah.
It helps. And I think, I make a lot of videos for social media. So then you have to edit them. And I'm a recovering perfectionist, let me put it that way. So when I'm editing, the little bits out here and there, then I have to rewatch certain bits 50, 60 times. So you get used to just looking at yourself with objective curiosity rather than, oh, I hate my voice. That's just your voice. You can't do anything about it. So why would you moan about something you can't change? The sky is blue. If you don't like blue, tough. And that's kind of the same with reviewing your own presentation skills.
There's a whole lot of self-love coming through
Yeah,
as a foundation of all of this. Just
it is. Yeah.
accepting who you are, loving who you are, warts and all. Um,
Yeah.
and I have to confess, I've done however many episodes for the She Network now, and I've not watched one full one back for that very reason that just the thought of watching myself do all of this. Look, I'm using my hands though. But I am gonna watch this one back and take any feedback from you all and myself. So that's a really practical piece of advice. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad.
I've got a question. It's quite specific. So on Teams calls or virtual calls, there might be many people on a call, and some people might put their camera off or they might not engage. That might also be in real life as well. Somebody might get their phone out, or you can see that you're kind of losing the crowd. What techniques might you deploy in those moments to build engagement?
I think I said this at the beginning, but you're not there to please every single person because it's impossible. I've spoken to many thousands of people, and there's always going to be someone who is not engaged by what you're saying, who doesn't like you. I've had somebody come up to me afterwards. "Oh, it was a great presentation, but I don't like your voice."
Wow.
So
Yeah.
rude.
Oh yeah. Yes, it happens. People are interesting, let's put it that way. So
Also, keep that to yourself. Do you really need to hear that
My
somebody does?
voice.
That's a personal comment, isn't it?
it really is.
That's not a professional critique or support.
No, they just didn't like my voice. It was too loud and too whatever. And I was like, and I remember saying, I was like, "You bought the ticket. Sorry." What do you want me to do about it? Like, I can't feel bad about it. I'm sorry.
Maybe you were just owning your space too well.
I don't know. It was a man. Maybe that probably had something to do with it. I also had somebody recently. Oh, this was funny. Quick story time. I was backstage, and I have this almost ABBA-like sparkly purple outfit. It's like a jumpsuit. It's quite intense. And I was backstage, and I was about to deliver my keynote. But before me, there was somebody else who was doing just a normal talk. And there was a guy, and he said, "Well, that's an intense outfit." I was like, "Oh, thank you." Because I just don't take any negative energy. And he's like, "Don't you think that's a bit much for a stage like this?" So I said, "Don't you think you're a bit boring for a stage like this?" What a stupid thing to say. I was like, I know that after my talk, people are going to come up to me because they love my outfit. They're going to remember me because I'm the sparkly purple girl. I was like, this is how I like to present myself. That's how you like to present yourself. That's okay. There's no need to comment on how somebody else looks." And then he shut up. And it was true that afterwards people said, "Oh my God, the outfit." And the outfit actually became a whole thing. It was all over LinkedIn. It was all over Instagram. "Oh, the girl with the outfit." And the outfit did actually really well. It was great. The sparkles and all the lights. So there is always someone who's got it out for you that is either intimidated by you, jealous of you, who's just a general not very nice human being. So that's the number one thing. If you have a crowd of 50 people, let's say, let's keep it small, and you see one person on their phone, that's just not your person. Accept that. Because I'm not there to try and make everybody love me. I'm there to share something that I feel is really important. I'm being paid by this organization to share this really important stuff, or I'm being asked by an organization to share this important perspective. So I believe that they see the value in it for their audience already. And if that one person or those two people don't want to listen, that's okay. Let's also not forget that we live in a world where everything has to happen right now. That person might be the CEO of this organization who has to check their phone because we're in the middle of a big merger and they have to just, stay up to date. It could be that somebody's child has been trying to ring them 3 times during your presentation and they just quickly text them to say, are you okay? Is there something going on? So don't assume that just because someone gets their phone out that they're not interested, or just because somebody doesn't come on camera, they're not interested. It could be that they're ashamed of their background because they're living in a house that is in a complete mess. So they're like, you know what, I'm going to keep this off for a little while. It could be that they're having a really, really bad day personally or mentally, so they don't want to expose themselves. So I think we're very good as human beings, especially when we are presenting. It's really quite open and feels quite bare, right? So we feel like everything is personal to us. 9 times out of 10, it really isn't. So don't worry about it. If you, however, do see lots of people on their phones trying to do that, or yawning, or looking away, or looking bored, some people even have the audacity to start sighing when they're in the front row, going, oh, another half hour of this. That is when we need to change something. So when we're presenting, every 10 minutes, something needs to happen that makes us go, what? It needs to be engaging. So you can spend 10 minutes on a certain topic or a certain subject of that topic. But then after 10 minutes, we need a switch. We need something else to happen. So that means that we're going to go, right, moving on, right? So we want to announce that something new is coming. So you need to have that constant re-engaging going on. And if you're just someone who stands there with their slides full of text, and oh no, slide next, okay. And now here you see this, oh my God, yeah, then you deserve to be booed off the stage, okay? But if you are doing your best, you are sharing it from a place of passion, you are sharing it from a place of wanting to share this because you feel like they're going to benefit from it, and you use that technique to constantly re-engage, either by sharing another story, by bringing up a new topic, by giving a different perspective, then you're absolutely fine. Like I said, you can't please everyone, so don't try to.
Do you ever have any moments of doubt? You're so confident and it feels like you could just absolutely own any scenario. Like, do you have any moments of, low confidence or not feeling it today? And like, how do you get yourself through them?
God, yeah, like every day, multiple times a day. Ask my husband. Yeah, no, for sure. I'm also a human being. And people sometimes ask me, is it a personality that you put on? And part of it is, yes, I am. This is who I am. You can ask my friends, you can ask my husband, but I also have my vulnerable moments. But I make sure that the moments I am on stage, this is like a solid personality. It's almost like Beyonce's got Sasha Fierce. So I do turn that on, even if I'm not feeling it. I've had it where I had food poisoning and had to be on a massive stage for 4,000 people. Show must go on, people. So I did say, front row, this is a splash zone. So just be careful. But yeah, I have created a very solid way of showing up without having my private feelings involved there. But before I go on, I get incredibly nervous. I'm definitely more of an introvert than an extrovert, which surprises a lot of people, but I like my alone time and I like my deep thinking. And I have ADHD, so I also get completely distracted a lot of the time, and it comes with a lot of questioning what's happening in your own brain, right? So yeah, in those moments, I breathe. It's one of the things that saved me many, many times, because when we get panicky, our nervous system, our amygdala in your brain starts, producing all kinds of hormones that make it worse. So being able to control that nervous system is a big part of that. When we get nervous, we start breathing into the chest. So I make sure I start breathing into my belly, use that diaphragm. That muscle is there to create that peace and quiet. So I do that first. And sometimes I just accept that's how I'm feeling. I'm a human being, and I go, okay, you're feeling nervous right now. Why do you feel nervous? Are you underprepared? Are you afraid they're not going to like you? Do you feel just a bit weaker today? Because you just have those days, especially certain times of the month. You just don't feel 100% great. And I acknowledge that feeling, because I think that's a big part of it. We try to then overcome it. No, you need to accept that feeling. Stand alongside of it instead of trying to walk in front of it. I walk alongside of it and go, cool, this is what I've got to work with today. So let's do this together. You're here, and we're gonna just make this happen now. So breathing, big part of it, to just control your nervous system so you can think clearly, and acknowledging where it comes from, and then either tackle that or deal with it. Be in the moment with that fear, with that anxiety, and let it be there. My mother used to put a timer on. So if I, used to get really nervous, or if we had a tantrum or something like that when we were little, she used to set a 5-minute egg timer. And she's like, for 5 minutes, you can completely wallow in anxiety or self-pity or whatever it was. But when that timer goes off, you dry your tears and you get the stuff done. And I still do that. I still set timers. So I'll wake up in the morning. I did a TEDx last year, and I was well nervous for that. And my makeup team comes in, and I'm like, hey guys, woo. So I set my timer. I just breathe through it. And when that timer finishes, I'm like, cool, new mindset, new person, and we go for it. So yeah, but you can ask my makeup team. They always see a big change, and you can see it in the videos that I share as well of those days where I do big talks. In the morning, you see this sort of hi, no makeup person who's like in her pajamas, still going, come in, and they do my makeup. Then they'll start asking me some questions like, hey, what does today's talk mean to you, or something like that. But then I put my suit on or my outfit on, and every time, and they've been with me for a while now, these guys, and they say every time it feels like you're putting this skin on that is like, okay, everybody out of my way. I'm about to deliver something great. And it is a little bit like that. So yeah, you have to have your process for it, really.
Have you got a name for your book?
Sorry, Trina. I was going to say, almost like putting your armor on, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kind of theory around that, and why we feel protected, and
it definitely is. Like, there's a reason why it's all like this has got, I don't know if you can see it with the background, yeah. It's got these big pearls on it. Where I've got like these extravagant outfits. It's because they are my armor, because they help me feel like, if you're putting on this outfit, you better make sure you fit in that outfit, right? As a person. And that kind of helps. And Trina, to answer your question, I have no special name for it. It's just Pascala 2.0.
I like it. It has been such a motivating conversation, and I feel like I've like made a mental list of all the things that I want to work on. I don't know about you, Trina and Simone. It feels like it's been such a practical conversation that we can learn something from, and hopefully our listeners have enjoyed it as well.
I hope so.
I've been practicing breathing while I've been sat here.
It's normally what people do. Whenever I mention the breathing, they go, oh yeah, I wasn't breathing right. So you can always see it happen, especially if you're in person. You see them all, oh yeah, breathe deeply, and everybody relaxes a little bit. It's really funny.
I do a lot of yoga, and so it's like, okay, yes, I know how to breathe properly.
Oh,
I was just wondering that when people watch this, perhaps they could put some questions in the comments, and then if you would be able to perhaps answer them, because I just feel there's so much. We're kind of limited on the time, but I feel like we could talk for hours, actually.
Hours, Simone, with a nice glass of wine. Well, in my case, I can't have wine right now with the pregnancy, but with a nice cheese board or something.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. If people have questions, please do send them over, because I think this is very important, especially for women in the workplace right now. We often still feel like we have to prove ourselves, and we're still so bloody thankful for having that space. It's like, stop being thankful, start owning it. Thank you very much. So yes, if there's any questions, please ask them to send them through. They can either send them directly to me if they prefer. They can find me on LinkedIn, Pascala Berkmans. It's the first person that comes up, so they can pop them in there, or send them to you guys, and I will try and answer as many as I can as they come through, because it is an important thing that more women start owning that space, start developing that main character energy, because we do have something to say, and I think it is important that we are being heard. So yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you so much. For those listening thinking, I absolutely have to work with Pascale, how can I work with her as a coach, or how can my company employ Presentales? Where should they go?
Sure, there's a few different ways they can go. The website's currently under construction, so we're having that redone. So you can go to www.prisontales.com, but it's completely old. So I would say stay away from there. The easiest way where I'm most active is on LinkedIn. Pascale Bergman, send a connection request with a little message to say, hey, I heard you speak at the She Network, and I'll make sure that I come back to you. Or email pascale@prisontails.com is where you can find me and where we can have a chat about booking you in for an intro call. So that's totally fine.
Thank you. Thanks so much for your time and all of your advice. We really appreciate you being part of the She Network today and wish you all the very best for your upcoming plans, business and pregnancy as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be a brilliant year for you.
There's a lot happening, that's for sure. But it's all very welcome. So I don't think I've ever been this excited in my life. So it's gonna be great.
That's lovely to hear. Thank you, Pascale and Trina and Simone as well for being guests today. And to our listeners, you've been listening to the She Network. We are a network for women working in higher education, marketing and professional services. We're very much here to support you and share our experiences, but we do also want to hear from you. So if there are topics that you'd like us to cover or questions that you have for anyone here, please do let us know. Once again, thank you very much, and we wish you all a great rest of the week. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye. Bye.